there's something really special about living inside a manuscript for months and
Yeah.
helping an author shape it into the best version of itself. And that editorial relationship and that kind of trust you build with someone is really hard to replicate, I think, in any other job.
Hello, and welcome to The Content Bite, a podcast for freelancers who use their words to make money. I'm Rachel Smith, a freelance journalist, copywriter, and content producer. I'm also the founder of Rachel's List, a jobs board and community for Australian writers and other creatives.
And I'm Lynne Testoni. I'm a journalist and content writer as well. Rachel and I are your weekly co-hosts, and every week we bring you all kinds of tips, tricks, and some fabulous guests to help you make the most of your freelance business.
As a writer, I'm great with words, but I rely on Rounded to do the number crunching. It has helped me get my head around my business finances without relying on anyone else. Plus, I can see exactly which of my services bring in the most money so I can make informed business decisions. Gold members of Rachel's List can save 20% on an annual Rounded plan, so check out the show notes for details.
Lynne, I don't know about you, but I'm always intrigued to hear career switch stories. And we've had a few on the podcast now, even recently, I think. But it's really good to see people bringing their skills to a whole new job or industry, isn't it?
I agree. I think it's really interesting because sometimes you feel you get stuck in one particular niche or one particular job. It's great to see. I think a lot of writers are surprised how transferable their skills are. So I think it's really good. And we're talking to Jo Butler today. So many of our audience will know from her book publishing days. So for over 30 years, she worked as a book editor, publisher, and literary agent, both in-house and freelance, helping shape authors' career. And now she's moved into marketing and comms in the university sector, which is so interesting, isn't it?
It is such an interesting move. I've actually known Jo most of my life as she is my sister's bestie. Hi, Nat, if you're listening. And we went to the same school. So,
Oh, fantastic.
yeah, the same high school. So I've followed her career forever. And what I think is great is she now has a day job in comms at Sydney Uni, but she also teaches in the Masters of Publishing program. So she's really still got a foot in both worlds of,
Oh,
what
that's
she
so
wants to do.
interesting. And I think it's also great to get a bit of a behind the scenes look at the world of books because she knows a lot about that. And I know that's a huge interest for the many authors that tune into us.
Absolutely. Well, without further ado, welcome, Jo. We are really happy to have you on the podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me.
It's great.
Yeah. I know you've had a long and winding career in book publishing, and you even wrote a blog post for Rachel's List about becoming a book editor. But was there a moment where you realized that you wanted out, or was it just time to try new things? How did that all come about?
Yeah, I don't think there was one dramatic I'm done moment. It was more a slow dawning realization that I was curious about what else I could do with the skills I'd built over the 3 decades I'd been in book publishing. I still loved books and I still loved working with authors, but and definitely my publishing colleagues. But I'd reached a point where I'd done most versions of the job that I'd wanted to do. So I'd been an in-house editor for many years, and then I was also a fiction publisher. And then after some freelancing, when my son was really little, I moved over to becoming a literary agent. And then when my son was about to finish high school, just so I was a bit more flexible, I went back to editing and freelance for his last 2 years of high school. So I think as he kind of left home and went to uni, I felt more like I wanted to change as well, and that I wanted kind of out of what I was doing and also wanted to grow in another direction. So I guess I just didn't want to stagnate in what I was doing, and I wanted to test myself in a new environment.
Mm.
Oh, that
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. Because from the outside, book publishing does look a bit glamorous, but I think it's changed a lot, hasn't it? And you said three
Yeah.
decades. So it would have changed a lot the years you
Yeah.
were in it.
Yeah, it's making me feel old. And
Oh, no, no. Oh,
no,
gosh.
no, you're not making me feel old, but realistically, yes, it's been almost 30 years. But publishing, and it was really from the time I finished uni in the mid 90s, but and I'd been a bookseller and then kind of moved into legal publishing and then trade publishing, which is sort of the fiction, non-fiction, normal
Yeah.
books. But I agree, publishing absolutely looks glamorous from the outside. So you've got the book launches and the festivals and the beautiful covers, and those things are real and joyful. But the industry has really always run on tight margins and long hours. So I guess what's changed most over the years that I've been in publishing is the pace. Everything is much faster now. So acquisitions and production schedules are tighter and marketing cycles to get those books promoted and out there. And social media has shifted the burden of promotion onto authors in ways we didn't see 20 years ago. So
Yeah, that's interesting. We see a lot of that.
definitely, yeah. And that puts so much pressure on authors, and, they can feel quite hard done by justifiably because they've written this great book. And then I guess they're expecting to have their books marketed and publicized, but often they do have to do a lot of the work themselves just because people within publishing are so stretched. And there's definitely so much pressure on editors and production staff and so much commercial pressure on publishers. So that's definitely, I think, has changed and got harder over that 20 or 30 years. But I guess what hasn't changed really are those fundamentals of book publishing. So you still need that compelling idea, and you still need strong writing and a clear readership. And most of all, you need a passionate team behind, the book and the author's sort of, yeah, passion. You want that passionate team behind that author. So I guess the magic and the stress coexist, and they always have. So that hasn't changed.
Yeah.
Mm. Wow. Well, what do you miss about working full time as a book editor?
Yeah, look, there's a lot that I miss. I really miss that deep immersion into a book or the world that somebody's created, whether it's nonfiction or fiction. Like I really miss that deep dive into a topic that I may not have known anything about, but like you almost have to pick it up by osmosis and you almost need to become an expert yourself. So I think that's really enjoyable. And there's something really special about living inside a manuscript for months and
Yeah.
helping an author shape it into the best version of itself. And that editorial relationship and that kind of trust you build with someone is really hard to replicate, I think, in any other job.
Mm.
And yeah, I guess I almost miss that moment when the finished copy lands on your desk and you think, we made this, and I guess that tangible outcome is incredibly satisfying and rewarding, and you can see that book on your shelf for years to come, and you kind of forget any of the bad stuff that might have been associated with that book, like with the tight deadlines, and you just see the finished product. And I think you feel almost as proud of it as probably the author does. So yeah.
That's lovely.
So interesting. I'd love to know, now you've stepped out of book publishing, has it changed how you view the industry? Can you be a reader now, or do you always think about the behind the scenes stuff?
Yeah, I definitely am enjoying being a reader, and I'm probably reading more widely now than I was before. Like I didn't always have the time I wanted to read. Like you have to read to be a publisher or an editor, but there's so little time often when you're working on unpublished manuscripts to go and read a finished product of someone else's. So I guess after spending 3 decades editing manuscripts, I guess you kind of realize that hidden labor is quite enormous, and the book might start as a spark of an idea, but from there it's like proposals and acquisitions meetings and the kind of profit and loss projections and the contract negotiations and the structural edits,
Mm.
line edits, copy edits, all that kind of stuff. There's just so much that goes on behind a book, and then the proofreading, cover design briefs. Sorry, I'm going on, I know, but
Oh, no, not at all.
and then there's sales reps pitching to retailers, and now there's metadata that you kind of have to be across, and distribution logistics. So yeah, there's a lot.
Yeah.
It's really interesting what you said about how, you had limited time to read what you wanted though, and
Yeah,
that changed when you were out of it. It's really interesting because it made me think of when I was a movie reviewer and I was doing that for 10 years as a job, right? But then when I
yeah,
stopped doing that, I used to just fall asleep in movies immediately.
yeah,
Like the minute a movie was on or I was in a cinema or something, it was like my brain went, "No, you don't do
yeah.
this anymore."
It's so
Just
interesting.
shut down. I'm much better now though.
No,
Yeah.
I've found an interesting thing that I've always had to read really quickly, and I've always
Mm.
been a fast reader, but I've noticed that I'm slowing down a lot in my reading now and
Yeah.
really savoring each line, which I kind of never had the luxury of doing in my own reading time. So
Yeah.
yeah, I really love that now.
And
That's
you can
so
probably
nice.
read something that's a bit quirky or something you
Yeah.
might not have picked up now.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And like I guess having worked in publishing, it does make me pick up things that I might not think I would have been attracted to. So it's kind
Mm.
of given me that as well. Like I read a lot of nonfiction now and I've mainly worked in fiction and yeah, it's fun.
Yeah, that's nice. Well, you mentioned that, authors find that they have to do a lot of the legwork in marketing their books. We talked a little bit about that earlier. What are the other things that you wish authors knew about the book publishing industry? Because we know a lot of them will be
Yeah.
hanging on your answer to this one.
It's really tough. Like I know as an agent, I really saw that kind of rejection authors have to deal with all the time and not feeling good enough because, it might just not be the right time for their book, but they're really talented writers. So I guess I really wish that authors understood how commercial the industry is and that it's not necessarily enough to be like an artist or to write really well or to be creative. But I guess, publishing is and writing is so creative, but it's publishing is a business when it gets down to it. And a great manuscript isn't always enough. So I guess what I wish authors knew or really took to heart is that, timing and market fit and positioning and the publisher's list strategy, all of that matters, and they might not see that. And that's difficult for them. And it's really difficult if you haven't been inside the publishing business to really see what's going on and understand that it's not personal. So I just wish that writers knew that rejection isn't necessarily a verdict on quality and that publishers are all about risk and budgets or how a book sits within a list at a particular moment. So yeah, it's all so timing based and such a speculative business.
Mm. I love that. Well, let's move on and talk about your move to comms. Does it feel like for you, you're still helping to tell stories, but in a different way?
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think stepping out of book publishing has given me perspective or a new perspective, I guess. So when you're inside book publishing, it can feel all consuming because you're often working out of hours and you can't just drop a project at 5 o'clock. You really sometimes need to keep working on it to maintain momentum and to really get inside the author's voice and the characters. So from the outside now that I'm out of publishing, I can see or really feel both its strengths and its blind spots more clearly. So, I can really see how passionate it is still. And I admire that so much, the passion that people carry and the authors, they carry that. But there's just what I see now with a clearer perspective are the structural pressures. And in a way, I think maybe it's just that I'm getting old and cranky, but I think I'm more outraged now about how stretched everyone is and perhaps underappreciated sometimes, or that people like especially editors and production people, their value isn't really recognized by everyone. I think they're just pushed a lot. And I found stepping into a comms role, I find our skills are much more appreciated because we're kind of dealing with everyday people and getting messages out every day. And the people that I work with, and I work in a university with a lot of researchers and academics, they're so grateful for those skills on a daily basis. And that's something you don't always get in publishing. You don't get I'm not saying you need praise every day, but it's just maybe
Appreciation.
appreciation. That's the right
Mm.
word. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I find the same with magazines because I worked
Yeah,
in magazines and people still working there don't understand how good they are and the pressure that they have is a
exactly.
lot. Yeah.
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 Yeah. And I
It's the
think,
same
yeah.
like when you're dealing with clients as well, who don't have those writing skills or marketing skills.
Mm.
And you suddenly say,
Yeah.
have you thought about this? And they're like blown away. And
Yeah.
the wheels start turning as they think about a different part of their business that perhaps they haven't thought about. And yeah, I really
Yeah.
love that side of it too. Yeah.
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 Mm.
You do sort of recognize in those moments, yeah, what your skill is, and you
Yeah.
don't always think about that.
Yeah. It's really true.
That's true. So how did your comms job come up? Were you already teaching the Masters of Publishing course? Or was it a very deliberate sort of take stock moment when you looked where your skills might fit and decided to head in that direction?
Yeah, the comms job kind of came up at a moment when I was already reflecting on what might be next. So I think, as I said, my son had just left school and he was moving away for uni, and I'd been freelancing and I really missed working with colleagues, and I just thought I'd done a lot in publishing already, and I'd been teaching in the Masters of Publishing program on and off. So that had kept me connected to the industry as well as the freelancing. But I just felt I was ready for a bigger shift. And part of that was financial. Like I thought, you know, eh, I did probably need to earn a more regular income where you can live better in Sydney. So it definitely wasn't impulsive. So I kind of did have to sit down and map out my skills and think what editorial judgment, stakeholder management, and all that kind of messaging could lead me to. So I guess comms made sense in that sense when I kind of reframed my experience and thought, what jobs can I go for that are a little bit outside of publishing? So I just kind of had to believe that my skills were transferable and try to sell them in such a way that that everybody could tell that they definitely are. And I think often book editors don't realize that you can work outside of that book publishing industry and use those skills. Like often it's crisis handling and diplomacy and all of that you can use every day in a high pressure environment in a kind of university or a corporate setting.
Yeah, wow. It's interesting because we see like lots of journos, kind of thinking about going in that direction, I suppose, if they're coming out of magazines and wondering what's next. But what do you think now that you've been in the job for a while, what are the skills you really think you need to work in comms?
Yeah, I think you definitely need clarity, and I think you need diplomacy, which is a massive skill that editors have and that they've developed dealing with so many different authors. You definitely need speed. So yeah, things turn over a lot quicker in this comms environment, maybe than they do when you're working on a really big book. So I guess the work that you're doing on a book, you are working quickly, but because it's such a massive project, people don't necessarily see the speed. Yeah, or they don't really understand the pace at which you're working. They think, oh, that's going to take ages, but really you're working very quickly. So adapting that to an everyday environment where you need to get things out in a day or in a week is something that's pretty easy to do. I found that pretty easy. And I guess you need to understand audiences quite deeply and adapt your tone instantly. And I think editors learn that, or book editors learn that dealing with different authors' voices. So I think you get a good sense of voice and tone. So, and authors can be really difficult. So that kind of makes dealing with senior leaders in organizations a lot easier. So editors might not realize they've got that skill, or journalists. That's something that is really inbuilt after a couple of years of working as an editor or a journalist. And so I think for editors or journalists thinking about transitioning, like it can be a really natural pivot, and you're already trained to distill complexity and find the core message. So I think you've really got those skills there.
That's
It's
good to
interesting.
know.
But there's
Yeah.
some skills you weren't expecting. I mean, for me, when I moved into corporate after being a journalist, I was quite surprised how rare it is to be able to write and to spell,
Yeah.
which, because I presume some of the academics, they're quite articulate in their own areas of expertise, but not the actual writing
I
part.
totally agree, Lynn. Like I've been really surprised by, spelling. Like, not everyone who's brilliant can spell, and those skills are really valued, especially in the university environment, and I'm sure in corporate communications. So I think, yeah, I mean, that's massive, just to be able to write and to know grammar and to have a sense of, yeah, like house style or whatever. And just editorial discipline is really incredibly valuable. So just being able to structure information and anticipate what people might want to read, and to cut like ruthlessly, I guess, like people's long-winded
Slashing.
things. Yeah, like that's really
Academics do
a skill.
love to write a
They
lot.
do indeed. So sometimes just getting to the core of that message is such a skill.
What happens when you've done that and you give it back to them and they say, "You've taken all the good stuff out"?
Oh, again, it's a negotiation. And I guess that's what we learn in publishing when you're dealing with an author whose words are so close to their heart and they don't want to kill their darlings. That
Yes.
yeah, you've got to kill your darlings. And I think
Mm.
academics are quite open to people like not necessarily understanding them and knowing that they need to distill their words. So I've actually found academics a little bit easier to work with than some of the more creative temperament of
Yeah.
people.
I think smart writers know that they should have a Kill My Darlings folder. And so you just move everything into there and then you can look at it lovingly, but it doesn't have to actually see the light of day.
That's so true. You can stroke that folder.
You
Yeah.
can.
Or the genius undiscovered.
Yes,
Exactly.
that's
Exactly.
right.
Mm.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well,
Yeah.
I think before Christmas, you and I sat down, we had a cup of tea, and I said,
Mm.
what it does your job entail? So I thought it
Uh,
was your answer made me really think. And I thought, wow, she does all those things. So tell us
yeah.
what a typical week looks like in a
Oh
comms
gosh,
role at
I
a
can't
university.
I can't quite remember what I said before Christmas, and I'm sure it's quite different now. But like what is my business as usual sort of stuff. I write newsletters for the faculty, so I write staff newsletters and student newsletters. So a couple of weekly newsletters and a monthly one. And we're writing for different audiences with those. So I've got to adapt my style there. What else? There's a lot of strategy work. So there's a lot of strategy documents we do at universities about, how the university can be better and how we can work towards shared goals. So definitely this year we've had a month of intensive work preparing a strategy document. It's only 32 pages, but so much work went into that with consulting different people and a lot of that, like a lot of stuff that I didn't do in book publishing was design work. So I've got kind of a counterpart who works with me. He's also a comms person, but he does more the design and I do more of the words. So we're a bit of a team like that. So if I had to do that on my own, I'd be really struggling. So I think they're skills that I need to build up. Definitely my design skills. Aren't as
Mm.
great as his, and his word skills aren't as great as mine, but like together we're sort of managing it. But
Mhm.
we do like sometimes I have to write like a speech for the dean or something, or I sometimes just check people's documents. I check speeches they might be giving, or I check letters that they're sending, or I write blurbs. I kind of do so many different things. So it's never the same. And we work quite closely with Taronga Zoo. And so I had to write stuff for promoting our courses with Taronga Zoo. And sometimes we do positioning statements for Eureka prizes when our scientists are going for those. And so there's a lot of different things, just responding to issues and writing news articles as well. I forgot about that. So
Mm.
we do write some internal news articles just to let staff know what everyone else is doing in the faculty. There's also an external comms team, so I'm internal comms. So I communicate more with the people who are within the university, and then we've got an external comms team. Their comms go obviously outside the university, so we all do kind of different things.
Would that
Yeah.
external team be the team that might hire freelancers, for example?
Yes, they're more likely to hire the freelancers. Yeah, we don't actually do freelancers internally with comms. As far as I know, I'm not sure what other faculties do, but yeah, I think part of it, we have a lot of content management systems here that we have to be trained up into. So that's a little bit of a complexity with getting freelancers in because that training can take a while. So I'm not quite sure how it's positioned, but I think the external comms probably do get people in to do more freelancing work.
Mm-hmm. Mm.
Was
Interesting.
there a bit of a steep learning curve? Is there anything about the role surprise you?
Yeah, there was definitely a learning curve. So I think just adapting to the university systems and the content management systems, that
Mm.
was a big adjustment for me. And I had worked at another university, and that was different again. So I think every university has their unique systems, but I think it's really the same when you enter any job. Every workplace has its own systems that you need to have that steep learning curve kind of into.
Yeah.
So I think the biggest adjustment was the short timelines, like getting used to the work just turning over. And I guess it's kind of nice because I don't have these projects hanging over my head for months at a time. Like I can just get something out of the way in a week, and that's
Yeah.
kind of nice. So yeah, so in comms, I guess something can be conceived and executed within hours, whereas in publishing, it takes months, sometimes years. So yeah.
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 Yeah, that's a real shift in how you work. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's definitely dynamic, and I've found the pace to be really kind of energizing. And
Oh,
yeah, so
that's
I
nice.
definitely don't have time to sit and, I don't know, ruminate like,
Doom
yeah,
scroll.
exactly. Yeah, yeah,
Mm.
So
yeah.
tell us a bit about the Masters of Publishing course. What does that involve? And is it a big time commitment?
Just on top of my full-time work, it is a bit of a time commitment. I have taught it at a time when I was freelancing, and that was a bit easier to manage. So I just the last semester I was just doing it one night a week, and it was a 3-hour class for postgraduate students. And a lot of those people want to enter book publishing or not magazine publishing, but there's not a lot of magazine publishing anymore, but probably mainly book publishing. So it I was teaching 3 hours a night, but there was a lot of preparation going into the lessons.
Yeah.
Just keeping up with the changing pace of things, because AI is a big factor now in how the publishing industry is changing. And because
Mm.
I haven't really been working in the publishing industry inside while AI has been around, it's quite a learning curve for me to understand how that impacts the industry.
Mm.
But really, the
Mm.
Master of Publishing course is just focused on giving students that kind of realistic, holistic understanding of the industry. So that's like editorial, marketing, rights, contracts, and kind of just the business side. So we kind of look at case studies and trends and practical skills that they might
Mm.
develop. So yeah, I guess it really is for people who are seriously wanting to work in and around books. So I try to make it as honest as possible. And sometimes, like, it was hard for me because I've stepped outside. And so to kind of encourage people to stay within the industry, that was a bit of a challenge because I can see the benefits of also moving outside of the
Yeah.
industry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are some of the hard truths that you feel like you have to share with your students? Or do
Yeah.
you keep it a bit like rainbows and unicorns?
No, I think that's sort of what I was getting at, just with what I was just saying, that
Yeah.
it's I have told my students, and I don't want to sort of, yeah, dim their light or their hope and their anticipation of entering publishing. But I guess the hard truth is that publishing is very competitive, and I guess the hardest truth is it's not well paid, especially at entry level. So
Yeah.
I guess passion is necessary, but not always sufficient, because as a worker, you need resilience, because there's a lot of creative temperaments in there that can sometimes be a little bit toxic, and that's not necessarily the authors, it can be the people that you work with. And there's definitely not the HR practices in book publishing that I'm used to now at the university. So, like, it's a luxury to have HR that, and training and ongoing training opportunities that are easy to access. So I guess I the hard truth I want to tell students who are interested in book publishing is, I guess, what we're talking about today, that there isn't just one path, and that your skills are very transferable, and that, publishing can just be a chapter in a broader career. And I kind of wish that that's what I'd known back when I was a student.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you think the book publishing industry here is different from that in the US or the UK? And you talked a little bit about AI. I
Mm,
thought that book editors were particularly struggling with it, but also I've read that publishers are getting so much AI
yeah.
generated manuscripts as well.
Yeah, I've heard that too. But, I guess compared to the UK or the US, our local industry is obviously smaller. So I guess that means fewer roles, especially for graduates, and tighter budgets. So I guess the great thing about having a smaller industry, in terms of the difference that we have here, is that you can have closer relationships, and sometimes you can have more breadth in a single job, that you're doing more than maybe if you had a huge workplace in New York or something.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and I guess as for AI, it's just anecdotally from what I've heard from editor friends, is it's definitely entering the workflow.
Mm.
And I think people are using it for early stage copy editing now. So they might run a manuscript through AI to
Or it might pick up typos and things like that,
yeah,
perhaps.
which I guess you're always doing with spell check, but it's almost picking up a bit more and suggesting
Yeah.
things. But from what
Yeah.
I've done, like for one thing, it's really unethical to put a manuscript through AI because you don't really know where it's going and it's
Yeah.
someone's, intellectual property. And that's one thing we had to tell our students not to put manuscripts through AI. They didn't always listen, but
Yeah.
we don't kind of know where all that info is going. But I guess you can use it as a tool, and I'm interested in ways that editors will use AI as a tool to help them. Because, developmental editing, which is the more big picture structural editing, that requires emotional intelligence and nuance. So I think that remains deeply human. And so I hope that, AI can assist that, but I don't think it will replace that editorial judgment. Or maybe I'm being naive, but that's what I hope anyway, that, we're not totally irreplaceable and that I just worry that AI could flatten out somebody's tone or their voice or that sometimes, as an editor, I once read a book without any punctuation and it worked. So I can't imagine AI letting that through. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
bad luck for James Joyce.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine what they'd do to James Joyce. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I suppose people could put their manuscript into AI and ask for an assessment, but that's
Yeah.
something that you do as well as your day job, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like you still take on manuscript assessments. How many do you do?
No, I actually don't
Oh, you
do.
don't do that?
No, not at the moment. I mean, the
Okay.
only manuscript I'm looking at the moment is my father-in-law's sort of
Yeah.
memoir.
Yeah.
So I'm not just because of the volume of my work at the moment and my
Yeah.
teaching, I haven't actually taken on much freelance editing. Later this year, I'm mentoring for the Australian Publishing Association. They do a residential editorial week where mid-career editors get mentorship from more senior editors. So I'm participating in
interesting.
that.
Yeah.
So
Cool.
that's sort of where we're workshopping a manuscript. So that's sort of how I'm keeping my foot in this year at least. So I'd definitely be open to freelancing again when I kind of move towards working less full time. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I'm not sure how far off that is. So I probably
Yeah.
need to work for a good few years still.
Yeah.
Yeah, for
Makes
sure.
sense.
Look, editing is definitely something that's hard to let go of. And yeah, I hope that I can still do it in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm sure you can.
Mm.
We are ending off the podcast with something new. It's actually not that new now because we've
Okay.
done quite a few of them, haven't we, Lynne?
Yeah, we've done 3. We've done 3.
We've done
okay.
3. So it's not that new, but it's called the Fast 3 Questions. Super
Okay.
catchy. So yes, we will kick off. First question: favorite tools you can't live without, and this could be anything. We've had some weird ones.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, if we're talking about editing, I like to have a notebook still and a pen. So I
Do
carry
you?
everywhere. I don't necessarily use them, but I find jotting down things, I tend to remember them a little bit better than putting them in notes on my phone. So
Yeah.
if I was talking about tools for editing, and this is very boring, I'm going back to that, but I often teach students this is
Yeah.
to have a really good style sheet and a style guide. And yeah, but I love a notebook myself. So, yeah.
Mm.
Oh, that's nice. We love old
Yeah.
school.
I love a
Yeah.
notebook. Yes. Yes.
The second question is a habit that genuinely saves you time.
Ooh, I think if someone's telling me about something they want me to write, I think it's just trying to write that key message first. And that's what I would be doing with a pen and paper.
Yeah.
So I guess before I draft anything, I really try to force myself to articulate the core point in 1 or 2 sentences. And I think that's probably something I learned being an agent, that all authors need to have that kind of one line, one paragraph, one page pitch, but you kind of need to get your pitch down to 1 or 2 lines
Yeah.
so you can, tell it to someone really quickly. So I guess that's really helped in comms, just to kind of distill writing down into the key message. Look, I think AI does this now, and look, I've used AI sometimes to put something in and go, what do you think the key message is? But yeah, it's kind of helping me as well to hone things in my own mind. So yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Final question.
one thing you wish you'd done sooner in your career?
Oh, I'm going to sound really jaded now, but we touched on it before, but I really wish that I'd confronted that kind of financial reality of book publishing much sooner
Yeah.
as a worker in book publishing. So,
Mhm.
I was so passionate about working in books and I was a bookworm as a kid. And I guess that passion can often blur the fact that you're, pretty criminally underpaid for the level of skill and responsibility and emotional labor involved. So I think most people I know give away a lot of labor because of how much they love the work and how they feel lucky to be there. But I think you're often reminded of how lucky you are to be there. And I think
A million girls would die for this job or something.
exactly, yeah. And like I know,
Like magazines.
yeah, and I know you're told that all the time in magazines and in TV, but you're also told that in publishing. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was definitely seduced by that whole glamour thing and the cultural cachet, but it doesn't pay the mortgage and it doesn't fund school fees or long-term security. So I think an important line that I wrote down, I think it's just recognizing that valuing books shouldn't mean undervaluing yourself. So that's
Yeah.
something I'd like to tell students. And so I think moving into comms forced me to acknowledge that my skills had real market value. And that's what I'd want to tell young people who are thinking about the book publishing industry, just to know when to leave, I guess. Or,
Yeah.
yeah, and not everyone, like, I mean, you can move up to executive level, but there's just so few positions that I think it's just important to know the market worth of your skills and talent.
Yeah, I
Love
think that's
that. It's a
certainly
really
true.
good message.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Jo, thank you so much. It's been such a
Yeah.
good chat and so inspiring. And I think it's really interesting about moving into comms and all those transferable skills. I think our readers
Yeah.
will take a lot from that. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
great. No, thank you. It's my pleasure to talk to you.
Yeah. Well, we'll put all the links on where to find you on LinkedIn. And yeah, we'll also pop that blog post that you wrote about
Okay.
editing into the show notes for anyone who wants to revisit
Yeah.
it. But
Thank you.
yeah, it's just been
Fantastic.
fabulous
So
having you on.
lovely.
Thanks, Rach and Lynn. Thank you.
That was great. So thanks
right.
for listening, and we'll see everyone next week. And don't forget to check out the show notes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks again to our wonderful sponsors, Rounded, easy accounting and invoicing software that helps freelancers run their business with confidence.
And don't forget, if you're a gold member of Rachel's List, you can check your welcome emails for an exclusive discount code on the annual subscription rate. You can also find it in the private Facebook Gold group, or just contact us at hello@rachelslist.com.au.